My name is Daniel, and what I'm about to tell you will make you question everything about honesty in relationships. 3 years ago, I made a decision that seemed harmless at the time. I pretended to be poor on my first date with Amanda. What began as a little white lie spiraled into a web of deceit that nearly destroyed the love of my life. And when she found out the truth, well, the consequences were far beyond anything I could have ever imagined. It all started on a September morning in 2021. I had just sold my second tech company for $8.5 million. At 32 years old, I was financially free, living in a penthouse in Manhattan and driving a Lamborghini. But there was a problem. I was completely alone. Every woman I met seemed interested only in my money. Expensive dinners, extravagant gifts, trips to exotic destinations, all they wanted was the lifestyle I could provide, not me as a person. That's when my friend Marcus challenged me. Dan, have you ever thought about meeting someone without mentioning your financial situation, just to see if they genuinely like you? The idea stuck in my head. And that's exactly what happened when I met Amanda in a coffee shop in Brooklyn, far from my Manhattan world. Amanda was reading a book on organizational psychology when our conversation began. She was a high school teacher, 28 years old, and there was something about her that immediately drew me in. It wasn't just her natural beauty, curly brown hair, bright green eyes, a genuine smile. It was her authenticity. The way she talked about her students, how she genuinely cared for each of them. When she asked what I did for a living, the words came out before I could think. I work in computer maintenance. I have a small company, a very small one. It wasn't technically a lie. I had started by fixing computers before creating my software, and technically, I still owned a company. I just didn't mention it was worth millions. Amanda smiled. That's cool. It must be challenging to work for yourself. In that moment, something incredible happened. She didn't ask about money, didn't seem impressed or disappointed. She was simply interested in me. We talked for 3 hours about books, dream vacations, life philosophies, fears, and hopes. When I suggested we go for dinner, she insisted on splitting the bill. I know how tough it is when you're starting a business, she said, and my heart warmed in a way it never had before. After our first date, I knew I had to continue the charade, at least until I was sure of her feelings. I discreetly rented a modest apartment in Queens, bought a used Honda Civic, and created a whole persona. Amanda believed I lived in a one-bedroom apartment, carefully managed my expenses, and occasionally faced the financial struggles typical of a small business owner. Meanwhile, my Manhattan penthouse remained empty most of the time, my Lamborghini stayed in a private garage, and I paid someone to maintain the illusion. Our second date was at a cheap restaurant she chose. We don't need to spend a lot, she said, holding my hand. I'd rather be with you at a diner than alone in a fancy restaurant. It was exactly what I wanted to hear, but it also made me feel guilty. She was being considerate for a financial situation that didn't exist. Over the first 6 months, our relationship blossomed incredibly. Amanda was different from every woman I had ever known. She cooked dinners at home to save money, suggested free activities like park walks and visits to museums on free admission days. What was most impressive was how she supported me emotionally. When I was worried about a difficult client, in reality I was negotiating a new investment, she would massage my shoulders and say, I know it's tough, but you're talented and dedicated. Things will get better. She even offered to lend me money when I pretended to have a cash flow problem. I have some savings, she said. We can be a team. That night, watching her sleep beside me in the modest apartment I had rented just to maintain the charade, I realized I was completely in love with her. Not for what she could give me, but for who she was. Generous, caring, authentic. But I also realized that I was in an increasingly complicated situation. As our relationship deepened, maintaining the charade became more and more difficult. Amanda wanted to know more about my company, my clients, my family. I created elaborate stories about my life. I said my parents had died in an accident. They were alive and well in California. That I had no siblings. I have a sister. And that I grew up in a lower middle-class family. My father is a doctor. The hardest part was controlling my habits. I had to pretend certain things were too expensive for me, even when I wanted to treat Amanda to something special. When she mentioned her dream of visiting Paris, I had to bite my tongue to stop from offering a trip immediately. Instead, we started a Paris fund together. She contributed $50 a month, and I pretended to do the same while secretly depositing thousands into a separate account. After a year and a half together, I knew Amanda was the woman of my life. But how could I propose while keeping up the farce? I bought a modest ring, very different from what I truly wanted to give her, and planned a proposal within our budget. I took her to the same park where we had our third date for a simple picnic. When I knelt and opened the box, Amanda started to cry. "Daniel, you didn't have to spend so much. I know this must have cost you a lot." "You're worth every penny," I said, and at least that much was true. She said yes, and in that moment, part of me wanted to confess everything. But how could I explain 2 years of lies? How could I tell her that the man she loved didn't even exist? Planning the wedding brought new challenges. Amanda insisted on something small and budget-friendly. "We don't want to start our life together in debt," she would say, researching cheap venues and DIY decorations. It was torture. I wanted to give her the wedding of her dreams, a beautiful venue, the most expensive flowers, an incredible honeymoon, but I had to feign concern over every expense. Amanda worked extra hours to help pay for the wedding. She sold crafts online, tutored on weekends. Watching the woman I love sacrifice financially for a lie I created was killing me inside. Secretly, I paid several vendors to give us special discounts or unique promotions, so Amanda could at least have some of the things she wanted without suspicion. As we neared the wedding, Amanda started asking more specific questions about my work. She wanted to understand my business better, maybe even help with marketing or administration. "You never show me your projects," she said one night. "I feel like I don't really know this important part of your life." I made excuses about client confidentiality, but I could tell she was hurt by my apparent lack of trust. Worse, she began to genuinely worry about our financial future. "What if we want to have kids? How are we going to support a family on the unstable income of a small business?" These conversations tore me apart. She was worried about our financial security, while I had millions tucked away. Our wedding was in a small church in Brooklyn, with the reception in a community hall. Amanda was radiant in a simple dress she had altered herself. We had only 50 guests, mostly her friends and a few colleagues I had borrowed from Marcus to play the part of my family and friends. When we exchanged vows, Amanda promised to be with me for richer or for poorer. And I promised to love her in all honesty and truth, and I nearly broke down saying those words. The honeymoon was at a modest hotel in Atlantic City, a far cry from the exotic destinations I wanted to give her. But Amanda was happy. "I don't need luxury," she said, lying on our cheap hotel bed. "I just need you." That night, I swore to myself I would tell her the truth as soon as we got back. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. In our third year together, Amanda started pressing to meet my family. "Did your parents really die when you were 20?" she asked one night, "because sometimes you talk about them as if they're still alive." I had to invent more lies to cover the inconsistencies in my previous stories. On top of that, Amanda was sacrificing more and more. She had turned down an opportunity to get her master's degree because we couldn't afford for her to stop working. She was working 2 jobs to save money for a down payment on a house. I watched the woman I love exhaust herself physically and emotionally because of my lie, and the guilt was consuming me. Everything fell apart on a Thursday afternoon in November. Amanda had left school early because she was feeling ill. She had been overworking herself, and her body was paying the price. She decided to surprise me at the office, which was really just a commercial address I rented. But as luck would have it, that day I was at my penthouse in Manhattan closing a new investment deal. Amanda arrived at the address and found it was just a mailbox in a commercial building. Confused, she called the number I had given her as my business line. The number had been disconnected for months. Worried, she started to investigate. She searched online for Daniel Martinez Computer Maintenance and found nothing. No registered business, no online presence, nothing. That's when she found something she didn't expect. A newspaper article from 3 years prior about the sale of my software company with my picture and everything. Young tech entrepreneur sells startup for $8.5 million. Amanda read the article 3 times before she could process what she was seeing. When I got home that night, I found Amanda sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open, the article on the screen. She said nothing at first. She just looked at me with an expression I had never seen before, a mixture of shock, betrayal, and something that looked like disgust. "Who are you?" were her first words.
I tried to explain, to stammer out justifications, but she cut me off. 3 years, she said, her voice trembling. 3 years of my life living a complete lie. Amanda, I can explain. Explain what, Daniel? If that's even your name. Explain how you watched me work 2 jobs to save for our house while you had millions in the bank? Explain how you let me turn down my master's degree because we couldn't afford it? The tears started to fall, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were of rage. Explain how you made me believe I was loving someone who doesn't even exist? Over the next 2 hours, I told her everything. About my wealth, the Manhattan penthouse, the Lamborghini, about how I'd created a complete persona to win her over. Amanda listened in silence, and with every revelation, I saw something die in her eyes. "Do you have any idea," she finally said, "what it means to find out your entire life is based on a lie? That the person you love doesn't even exist?" I tried to explain that my feelings were real, that everything I felt for her was genuine. "But you're not genuine," she screamed. "You're a liar. You watched me sacrifice, worry, and exhaust myself, all for a situation you invented." She was right, and I knew it. Amanda left that night and didn't come back. She went to stay with her sister, and for a week, she didn't answer my calls or messages. When I finally got to speak with her, her voice was cold and distant. "I need time to process this," she said. "I need to figure out who I am when I'm not living in someone else's lie." She filed for divorce a week later. What I didn't expect was how Amanda would react to the discovery. Instead of just leaving me, she started investigating every aspect of our relationship. She found the Queen's apartment I had rented. She found out I had bribed wedding vendors. She discovered the bank account where I was saving money for our trip to Paris. Each discovery was like salt in an open wound. You didn't just lie about who you were, you lied about who I was. You made me believe I was with someone fighting alongside me when really I was fighting alone while you watched. Amanda asked for nothing in the divorce. "I don't want anything that comes from you," she said through her lawyer. I tried to insist she at least accept compensation for the lost time, for the sacrifices she had made. "You don't get it," she said at one of the hearings. "It's not about the money. It's about the 3 years of my life that I'll never get back. It's about the trust you destroyed, not just in you, but in my own ability to judge people." 6 months after our separation, I discovered the true consequences of my actions. Amanda had developed severe anxiety. She couldn't trust anyone anymore and had become socially isolated. Her friends told me she constantly questioned if people were being genuine or hiding something. She had lost weight, slept poorly, and had developed a habit of obsessively investigating anyone she knew met. "You didn't just break her heart," her sister said in a furious phone call. "You broke her ability to believe in people." I tried everything to win Amanda back. I wrote letters explaining my motives, sent flowers, even offered to donate all my money to charity. She returned everything. "You don't still understand," she said one of the few times she agreed to see me. "It's not about the money. It's about you watching me sacrifice for a lie. It's about you stealing my agency, my ability to make informed decisions about my own life." A year after our separation, Amanda finally agreed to meet me for one last conversation. She looked different, thinner, more guarded, with a hardness in her eyes that wasn't there before. She said, "I want you to know that I really did love you. I loved Daniel, the computer tech who was struggling to build his business, but that person never existed. So now I have to deal with the fact that I fell in love with a ghost. I asked if there was any chance we could start over now that she knew the truth. How can I trust someone who lied about literally everything for 3 years? How can I believe that anything you tell me now is true? The loss of Amanda changed me completely. For the first time, I understood that my wealth was not a blessing if it cost me my integrity. I started therapy to understand why I had done what I did. I discovered that my need to control how people saw me was a form of protection, but one that isolated me from genuine connection. I sold the Manhattan penthouse and moved into a normal apartment. I donated a large portion of my wealth to organizations that help people in financial hardship, people like Amanda thought I was. 2 years after our separation, I heard through mutual friends that Amanda was dating again, a teacher like herself, someone she had known for years and trusted completely. I felt a pang of jealousy, but mostly I felt relief. She was healing, learning to trust again. I, on the other hand, was still single. Not because I couldn't find someone, but because I now understood that I needed to be completely honest from the first date, and that meant dealing with people's judgment about my wealth. 3 years after our separation, Amanda called me. It was the first time she had initiated contact. "I want you to thank you," she said, and I was confused. Why? For teaching me that I'm stronger than I thought, and for teaching me to value honesty above all else. I asked how she was. "I'm good, really good. I've learned to trust again, but smarter this time. And you taught me that it's better to be alone than to live a lie." Today, 5 years after meeting Amanda, I still carry the scars of what I did. I not only lost the love of my life, but I learned brutal lessons about honesty, trust, and the consequences of our choices. The first lesson: there is no such thing as a small lie in a relationship. Every lie has the potential to grow and consume everything. The second lesson: when you lie about who you are, you don't just deceive the other person, you rob them of their right to choose based on reality. The third lesson: money can buy a lot of things, but it can't buy back lost trust or wasted time. And the fourth lesson: the people who truly love us will love us for who we are, not what we have. But they need to know who we really are to make that choice. Now, at 37, I finally found someone who accepts both my wealth and my flaws. Sarah knew from our very first date exactly who I was and what my financial situation was. She chose me knowing everything, and that has made all the difference. Sometimes I still think about Amanda and wonder, what if? What if I had been honest from the beginning? What if I had trusted that she could love me for who I really was? I'll never know the answer because that chance was lost forever the moment I chose a lie over the truth. If you've made it this far, I want to leave you with a message. Honesty can be terrifying, especially at the beginning of a relationship. You might be afraid of being judged, rejected, or used. But the alternative, building a relationship based on lies, is infinitely worse. Because one day the truth always comes out, and when it does, you won't just lose the person you love. You'll lose the version of yourself that they loved because that version never truly existed. Amanda was right. It's better to be alone than to live a lie. And it's better to be rejected for who you really are than to be loved for who you are not.
Tell me in the comments, have you ever lied about something important at the beginning of a relationship? How did it end? Or have you ever discovered that someone lied to you? If this story impacted you, please leave a like. Hit the notification bell for more real-life stories that will make you rethink your relationships. And share with someone who needs to hear this lesson about honesty. And let me know in the comments, would you forgive someone who lied about something so fundamental for so long? Was Amanda right not to give him a second chance? Or did Daniel deserve forgiveness?